So I'm going to try to get through my labor and delivery story. I have a cranky little fuss pot, 4-week-old, so we'll see how it goes. I've done this once and the lighting was crap, so hopefully the lighting is much better this time. Okay, so it started on July 15th, which coincidentally was also a full moon. What happened was around 10, oh no, cranky crankerson. Around 10:45, I emailed my husband and I told him that I had been having a lot of mild cramping and lots of slimy, goobery CM that morning. And then around 11:40, I went to the restroom and I wiped and I had bloody show. And it was kind of brown, red, pink CM and all that fun stuff. So I actually started crying and freaking out on the toilet. Not because I was... well, it was like excited and scared. I was so excited because I had an inducement date set for Monday, so I was so excited that my body had finally started to go into labor on its own. So then I went back to my office and I called my husband because he had a meeting at noon and I wanted to tell him before he went to the meeting in case something immediate happened. So he actually came back to my office because he was pretty close in the hospital to my office. And we talked for a little bit, and then I decided I was still going to go to my 41-week appointment, which is at 1 o'clock with my midwife. So I went ahead and went to the appointment, and I talked to the midwife a little bit. I had an ultrasound scheduled. I was supposed to have the ultrasound, then her, and then a non-stress test too, but I decided to ask if I could just see her first to see if the ultrasound was necessary. So I spoke to her for a few minutes and she said yes, it was necessary. So we went ahead and had that done, and it was a good thing because my fluid was low. It was 3.3 centimeters, which is less than 5%. So then I went back to talk to my midwife, and she actually went ahead and paged the midwife on call for labor and delivery, and she came down to talk to us about our options. And she decided to go ahead and check me, and I was 1 to 2 centimeters, and she wanted me to be admitted to labor and delivery that night because of the low fluid. So she told us we can go home and then come back around dinner time to be admitted. So and then she told us to, while I was at home, to get labor going, try nipple stimulation and walking. So I went home, and the first thing I did when I got home was bake brownies. And I really wanted to have done that during early labor because I wanted to give that to my labor and delivery and then mother-baby nurses. So I went ahead and did that, and then I did my nails, and I had like this labor nail like design that I wanted to do, so I went ahead and did that. And then I sat on my birth ball. I did some nipple stimulation. We did some walking. So that was about 3 o'clock. I went home, and then about 3:20 I'd lost a ton of my mucus plug. And when I was doing the nipple stimulation, I actually was able to collect a fair amount of colostrum, maybe like 1/4 of an ounce, or like about that much, which I thought was a lot for when I was getting like 1 or 2 drops. Finally got to labor and delivery about 7 p.m. and I went straight to the room. I just told them who I was and they took me straight to my room. I didn't have to go to the triage room because they were already expecting me. And I changed into a hospital gown and I gave a urine sample, and then they hooked me up to the monitor to watch my contractions in the baby. And the monitor was actually terrible because my belly was still a little bit B-shaped instead of the nice round D-shaped pregnant belly. The monitor was not flush on my skin, so it wasn't able to pick up the full extent of my contractions. So it looked like I was having mild contractions like my whole entire labor. Even when I was in like active and transition, it was still showing mild. So that was terrible. I hated the monitor. So my midwife came in and checked me, and I was still 1 to 2. She said to go ahead and have dinner, and then we would do Cervidil around 8. So I ordered dinner, and then we did the Cervidil at 8:05. And then after that, we walked labor and delivery for about an hour with external portable monitor, which was just as sucky. And the nurse actually had to come find us a few times to make sure I was actually still wearing the monitor because it wasn't like, it was showing like static or something. at the end of my walk, I walked by my door and there was a guy going into my room. So I stopped my nurse and I was like, that's my room, why is he going in there? And she said, oh yeah, that's the anesthesiology resident to talk to you about, you know, pain medication options. So I was like, okay, great, let's just go get it over with. So I went in there and he was kind of smug-ish, and I guess I was also kind of smug because I knew that I didn't want pain medication. So we went ahead and did the whole assessment and everything, and then he asked me at the end, so why don't you want an epidural? And I just told him because I want, you know, a natural unmedicated birth. And he was like, okay. And it, like, his voice was kind of like, okay, see you later. So I was really happy that I didn't have to see him later. And my hospital rate of epidurals, I think I've said this previously, is 80%. So I was happy to fall within that 20% of not getting the epidural. So I posted my labor and delivery story on a pregnancy forum, and somebody said it's not the end of the world to get epi. And I agree, it's not the end of the world to get epi. But for me and my labor, it was a huge goal to not get the epidural. So I just wanted to put that out there before someone's like, you know, don't bash the epidural or whatever, because for me and for my baby, that's what I wanted to do. Okay, so anyway, so then I finally tried to get some sleep around 10 o'clock, and I actually slept pretty bad because the Cervidil was really taking effect and thinning everything out. And about 1 o'clock, I did the call out for the nurse, and I asked her if I could get some Ambien because the midwife had mentioned previously that she would do an order for Ambien if I needed it later that night. And I actually was disappointed in the Ambien and my choice to get it because it sucked, and it just made me feel really disoriented and like drunk, and it didn't help me sleep at all. So I also woke up a couple times to pee, which was a pain in the butt because I had unhooked myself and then go pee and then come back and page her to hook me back up. So that was annoying. And I had to be monitored because of the Cervidil. Okay, so the pain started getting pretty intense after that. I remember thinking in my sleep, well, in my like dreamlike state, you need to just push the pain to the side. You need to take a back seat to the pain so you can get some rest. And mentally that did work for a while. I just kept like ignoring the pain and you know, focusing on sleep. So that was a good mental exercise, but it didn't work that long. I finally couldn't take it anymore, so I just woke up, or was, you know, got up at 5. And I paged the nurse again to ask her if I could get in the tub because it was just getting moderately intense. So she contacted the midwife, and the midwife told her that the Cervidil had to be in for 12 hours, and so I couldn't get in the tub. So after that, I ordered breakfast, and then I just started to kind of lose track of time. She came back around 7 or 8 to check me, and I was 3 to 4. And she told me that I couldn't get in the tub still because that was the stage in labor where it could actually stall me. So I needed to be at least a 7 before I got into the tub. There was a shift change at 7, and I got a new nurse, and my new nurse was totally awesome. And the midwife had mentioned if my labor doesn't start progressing that they would think of starting Pitocin. And the nurse actually talked to the midwife and suggested that we again try nipple stimulation and walking to progress my labor naturally first before going to Pitocin, and the midwife agreed. So the nurse came back and told us that. We were so, well, I was happy, but I was kind of already out of it, and my husband was really impressed by this nurse because she totally went to bat for us. So at some point I got a shower because I couldn't take a bath. I just took a shower, and then we called our doulas. I had 2 doulas. One was just a student doula, and the other one was just, you know, a regular doula, and told them what was going on. And then we told them when we'd call them back when it started to get when we really needed their help, when it was intense. We did some nipple stimulation, we did some walking, and we finally called the doulas at 10 to come because I was just getting really in the zone of labor, and my husband made the comment that it was getting really hard to read me, and it was getting really hard to convince me to change positions and stuff because my body was just taking over for me. I don't remember much after this point. After the doulas came, everything started to blur together because the pain was just getting more and more intense. It wasn't anything I couldn't handle, it was just my body was taking over. for me. My husband told me that my eyes would roll back into my head, and I'd just be in between contractions. I would just be like totally out of it, recovering, and then I could only answer in like one word sentences unless I was a break. But it was there was a few times I was coherent after that. So I was sitting on the bed, on the couch when the doulist came, and my contractions were strong, but they weren't that close together. So they finally all were able to convince me to change positions, and I got on the birth ball at the end of the bed. So I was sitting on the birth ball, and then like I had my head resting on some pillows, and my husband, his lap was there too. And my contractions actually started to pick up pretty well in that position. Every time I got on the birth ball, they picked up pretty well. So then I started to get some really long, strong, intense contractions. At one point, there was a few contractions that were actually 3 minutes long, and I remember almost freaking out, but not really. Like, I just kept repeating, I need a break, I just need a break, I need a break. There's only a couple times where I really was like, I'm gonna freak out, but I never really like freaked out. But I would verbalize that I was getting to the point of I really needed help mentally, and my doulas and my nurses and Josh and my midwives, they were excellent, or my midwife was excellent at reining me back in. Everyone just kept telling me how great I was doing. At that point, during those 3-minute contractions, it really helped me mentally, because I felt like I could have been easily influenced if anybody had mentioned epidural or mentioned pain medication. I myself did not bring anything up because I didn't want to disappoint, number one, myself, number two, everyone else. I knew I could do it, but it was just intense, and at that point the support that I had was just excellent, and not mentioning pain medication. My doula took some notes after this, so that's what I'm going off of. About 1:15, I started to feel pressure as the baby moved into my pelvis, and about 1:45 I moved onto the bed and got on hands and knees. So that's where I was on hands and knees on the bed, and the birth ball was up here, so I was kind of hugging it, like, you know, like this, and like rocking back and forth and stuff. And so the midwife was able to check me then, and so at 2 o'clock I was 6 to 7 and 0 station and fully effaced, so that was great. So she told me I could get into the tub, and so I got into the tub, and they had set it up so nicely. They had put pillows all around, like the back, so I could lean back. They put towels everywhere. The lights were down really low. The temperature was awesome. The jets were awesome. It was terrific. So the tub was not instant relief like I thought it was going to be for some reason, but it did take the pain from about an 8 to a 6 to a 7. It felt really good to just float in between contractions, and they actually wanted me to try hands and knees in the tub, but it was too uncomfortable. I got out. Oh, and another thing is, during my hospital bag, I mentioned that I was going to bring a swimsuit to get in the tub, and I did not wear that swimsuit. All I wore in the tub was a sports bra. My modesty was like completely gone at that point. So that's going to be the end of part 1, so stay tuned for part 2.